where is it? Here we go, from Nisi. Is the death of JFK and JFK Jr. connected? Are they connected as in political corruption?
You know something? That's a really interesting question, because if you would have asked me that question like 6 months ago, I would have said, no, that's off the wall, bonkers, crazy. But it turns out I did some reading on this. All right. And this is something I didn't know at all. And the MSN has completely covered it up. JFK Jr. had a girlfriend, okay, who he was very close to. She's very hard to communicate with. You can't get her on the phone. All right. She'll only communicate with letters. Her name is Maggie. And she revealed that JFK Jr.'s burning political ambition in life was to eventually find the killers of his father and bring them to justice. All right. He had read every book, and this is something else I didn't know. He had read almost every book there was on the JFK assassination. And what makes this even worse is that he was planning to run for governor of New York. Okay. And that was going to be a springboard. Now, I don't have to finish the story because everybody can put that together, so this is this is something that like a few months ago I would have said is no, of course. But now I have to qualify this because those are pretty much verifiable facts. All right. So yeah, actually the question is a qualified yes. Yeah.
All right, Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, you know what, Jim's the expert on most of the facts and the evidence. I largely have stuck to the legal end of things on this case, but I do want to make a point, Shaun. You repeat the title of our book, and it says that proves there was a conspiracy. Now, really, the word conspiracy and the whole term conspiracy theorist have been used so negatively against anyone who's had any interest in the Kennedy assassination. Chapter 1 of Chokeholds is like a uniquely incredible chapter of the book. It actually shows that the people who believe the Warren Commission and the single lone nut assassin Oswald, they're in the substantial minority of people. I think it's over 74% of Americans believe that there was a conspiracy to assassinate the president in 1963. And Chapter 1 goes over 70 individuals who were actually investigation insiders. So members of the Warren Commission who all wrote their name underneath the Lone Nut Conspiracy report in 1964. A large number of them didn't believe their own lone nut conclusion. Members of the House Select Committee on Assassinations, the last official government investigation, actually concluded there was a high probability of a conspiracy. Members of the Dallas Police Department, a large number of them, including the chief of police, believed that there was a conspiracy and a shooter on the proverbial grassy knoll. J. Edgar Hoover, multiple presidents of the United States are all recorded saying that they didn't believe the lone nut assassin story of the Warren Commission. So, you know, you have a number of high-profile conspiracy deniers who the mainstream media seem to put on a regular basis on the news. That's all you see under the mainstream media is lone nut proponents. But really, Chapter 1 of Chokeholds is incredible. And Paul Blow, the author of Chapter 1, he's come up with another 20 on the record insiders who've denied their own lone nut story. So I think it's important that your listeners and viewers understand that if you think there was a conspiracy, you're in the large majority of people, no matter what the news says.
To be precise, 4 out of the 7 Warren commissioners ended up believing it was a conspiracy. So you had the majority of them thinking it was, saying something different, but believing something else. All right.
All right. So here's a question from Tracy, Jim. Is it true that JFK was actually shot in the back of his head, killed by a bodyguard who was in the back of his car? Not sure what your thoughts are.
No, that isn't true. Now, this whole issue about the wound in the back of Kennedy's head is a very controversial issue. Okay, now what exactly do I mean by that? See, when bullets enter the body, they have an entrance and an exit. All right. Most of the time, the entrance is going to be a rather small, clean-edged wound. And then as the bullet progresses through the body, it picks up blood and tissue, etc., so that when it exits, it has a larger, what they call avulsive kind of a wound that has rough edges. See, in this particular case, 42 witnesses at both Parkland Hospital, which is the first hospital Kennedy was taken to, the emergency room, and at Bethesda Morgue, which is the place where the autopsy was held that night. 42 witnesses saw this avulsive wound in the right rear of Kennedy's skull. Now, I don't have to tell your listeners that mini lecture I just gave them, that's strongly indicative of a wound from the front. And then if you match that up, I don't know if you have the Zapruder film. If you match that up with the Zapruder film, okay, that's pretty convincing evidence that Kennedy was hit by a shot from the front. Those two pieces of evidence are pretty compelling, I think.
Shaun, can I jump in on that? 3 of our chapters really in Chokeholds cover this in amazing detail. And I think Jim wrote one chapter called The Evidentiary Mess of the 20th Century, which really covers how the autopsy was a complete botch job. And I mean, this is an autopsy of the President of the United States. But really, in my mind, one of the most important pieces of controversy is over the last 60 years is how there's been such a divergence between what the Warren Commission says was the actual truth about the president's head wound. All of the Parkland medical staff testified, and a number under oath on several occasions, that there was this large back head wound on the president's head, including 2 of the top neurosurgeons at the main trauma hospital in Dallas, Texas. Okay, they're all testifying that there was cerebellum coming out of the lower part of the back right of the president's head. Cerebellum's part of the lower back part of the brain. It can only come out of a hole in the very lowest part of the back of the head. Now, all of a sudden, there's a divergence once the president gets to the military autopsy at Bethesda, Maryland, and what we're told for 60 years is that there was no head wound on the president. There was no gaping hole on the back of the head. And the Warren Commission and the House Select Committee on Assassinations in the 70s all said there was no gaping hole in the back of the head. The Parkland doctors were wrong, and the Bethesda autopsy guys were the experts, and they were right. But Shaun, in the 1990s, the truth came out through the Assassination Records Review Board. And what the ARRB found is that a lot of the Bethesda witness statements and evidence actually confirmed what the Dallas doctors said. And that was suppressed from the public by the Warren Commission and, really sadly, by the House Select Committee on Assassinations. And Jim, maybe you can correct me if I've gone wrong anywhere there,
the
but I
House
don't
Select
think I
Committee on
have.
Assassinations actually lied about this. Okay, in volume 7, page 37 of their series, they actually say that in opposition to the witnesses at Parkland Hospital, all the witnesses at Bethesda somehow missed this baseball-sized wound, that the people at Parkland saw. They actually wrote that. And you can look it up if you don't believe me. Volume 7, page 37. Well, the only reason they could say that is because they classified all the reports that impeach that sentence. Okay, this is not true at all.
This
In
is really
fact,
mind-blowing, Shaun. I mean,